Hi, today we are going to talk about solving for the unknown values in a system of equations. We're going to use these two equations, y equals 4x plus 1 and 4x plus 2y equals 26. The object is to figure out what values of x and y will make both statements true. First, we'll solve by substitution. In substitution, we take one expression and put it in place of another. So in the equation, y equals 4x plus 1, I can take the expression 4x plus 1 and put it anywhere I see a y. So in the equation, 4x plus 2y equals 26, I can take this y out and put that expression in place of it. So it becomes 4x plus 2 times 4x plus 1 equals 26. Now it's important to put the expression in parentheses because I have to multiply the entire expression by 2, not just the 4x. And now I will solve this equation because I have one variable. I only have x's. So I have 4x plus, I'm going to use the distributive property, and I get 2 times 4x is 8x, plus 2 times 1 is 2, equals 26. I can combine my like terms of 4x and positive 8x, which gives me 12x plus 2 equals 26. I'm going to solve that two-step equation by subtracting 2 on both sides. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 12, and I get x equals 2. But I haven't completely solved it because I need to know a value of x for x and a value for y. So now that I know what x is, I can choose either of my original two equations and figure out what my y is. So I'm going to use this first equation. I have y equals 4x plus 1. Well, I'm going to substitute this 2 in for x. So I now have y equals 4 times 2 plus 1. So y equals 8 plus 1, or 9. So now I've solved for both variables. But I want to check to make sure that it works in both equations. I know it works in this one because I just did the work down here. Now I'm going to check to see if it works in this other original equation. So I'm going to do 4 times 2 plus 2 times 9, and it should equal 26. Well, 4 times 2 is 8, 2 times 9 is 18, and 8 plus 18 is 26. So my solution is x equals 2 and y equals 9. Another way to write that solution is with an unordered pair. So I always write it as my x value and then my y value. So I could write it as 2, 9. That's solving it by substitution. We can also solve equations using something called elimination. Elimination is where you use the equations and you combine them together. So I have the equations y equals 4x plus 1, and I have the equation 4x plus 2y equals 26. I like to get my equations for elimination in what we call standard form, where the x and the y are on the same side. So I'm going to have to work with this first equation. I have y equals 4x plus 1. And I'm going to move this 4x to the other side by subtracting 4x from both sides. And I now have negative 4x plus y equals 1. And that's in the same form as this. So I'm going to rewrite my equations. 4x plus 2y equals 26. And negative 4x plus y equals 1. Now, all I'm going to do is combine these two equations together, because I can combine like terms. So 4x and negative 4x gives me 0. Those cancel out. 2y and 1y gives me 3y. And 26 and 1 gives me 27. Well, now I have a simple two-step equation. I'm just going to divide this side by 3 and divide this side by 3, and I get y equals 9. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to use the same strategy that I did in substitution. I'm going to substitute this 9 into one of these two equations. Again, I'm going to use this first equation. And I'm going to put, I have y equals 4x plus 1. I'm going to substitute 9 in for y. And I get 9 equals 4x plus 1. Subtract 1 from both sides. I'm going to divide 4 on both sides, and I get 2 equals x. And again, if I would check it in the other equation like I did the last time, I would do 4 times 2 plus 2 times 9 equals 26. 8 plus 18 equals 26. 8 plus 18 is 26. And I again get the correct solution. So now I've solved this system of equations in two different ways. And again, I could write my solution as x equals 2, y equals 9, or I could write it as an ordered pair of 2, 9. Now you may ask, why do I use an ordered pair? Because the third way to solve this is by graphing the equations and finding the point where it's the same for both lines. Let's take a look. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a graph. And I'm going to label my x and my y-axis. And I'm going to look at each equation. I have y equals 4x plus 1. And when I graph equations, I like to use the slope and the y-intercept. So I know that the slope of this line is equal to 4, but I always write it as a fraction, 4 over 1. My y-intercept is going to be at the point 0, 1. So first, I'm going to graph my y-intercept. 0, 1 is right here. And I'm going to use my slope to find the next set of points. The positive 4 tells me to go up 4, and the 1 tells me to go right 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And I can keep going. And then I'm going to draw my line. Now I'm going to graph the other line. And the other line is 4x plus 2y equals 26. Now in order to find the slope and the y-intercept, I have to get this into slope-intercept form, like here, y equals. So I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. And I'm going to get 2y equals negative 4x plus 26. I'm going to divide each term by 2 so that I get y by itself. and I get y equals negative 2x plus 13. So now I know that my slope, which I'm going to use an m for, is equal to negative 2 over 1, and my y-intercept, and I'm going to use a b for that, is equal to 13. So I know that I have to do 0, 13 for my y-intercept. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's my first point on my line. My negative 2 tells me to go down, and my positive 1 tells me to go to the right. So I'm going to go down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, and I'm just going to do it a couple more times. And then I'm going to draw my line. And you will notice that when I draw the two lines, they intersect at only one point. That point is right here. Now, if I look at what the coordinates of that point are, I'll see that the coordinates are 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 2, 9. Just like when I solved it with substitution and when I solved it with elimination. Now you can choose whichever method works best for you. Some people like to use the same method most of the time, but most people use different methods depending on what the equations are like.